Great. Well, hi everyone. I'm Sam from the ExpensePlus team, and in this session, I'll just give you a quick run through about what we are going to cover, and then we will get started. So we're going to start with an overview of the bank reconciliation and process flow inside ExpensePlus, and I'll be telling you how you can efficiently reconcile transactions. We'll cover the different types of transactions that you might want to reconcile, including some of the more unusual types that you might have not come across before, but might need in the future. We'll also talk about payment processor accounts and how you can manage these in ExpensePlus. And finally, we'll cover adjustments and cover what these are, when they're needed, and also how to add them to ExpensePlus. Before we dive into the detail of how bank reconciliation works, I just want to step back for a couple of minutes just to look at how the bank reconciliation module, which is this one that I'm hovering over on screen, fits into the overall process flow. Now, for lots of you watching this should be something that you understand already, but for those that aren't fully familiar with this, let me just cover this for you. So the expense payments and approvals kind of process flow, which are these four red boxes that you see at the top of the screen. This provides not only an efficient way to process your kind of finances, process expense claims, process supplier invoices that come in. This is a digital process flow that makes that efficient. But the reason that I'm mentioning this now is because when we talk about bank reconciliation, if you've been using this process flow, not only will it save time and make the job of those kind of entering purchases much more simple, actually when you come to do bank reconciliation, your own job is going to become super simple, because rather than keying data off of paper-based forms, all of that data was captured electronically in ExpensePlus, which means that bank reconciliation is really efficient, as you will see in a second. The other thing to mention is that if you create any customer invoices using the invoicing module inside ExpensePlus, when you create a customer invoice, that is going to appear inside the bank reconciliation module, and again lead to really efficient reconciliation of kind of customer invoice payments. So these modules again talk to each other. So if you have someone that's taking care of room bookings and creating invoices, that's great. When they create an invoice, it's going to appear inside the bank reconciliation module. And when you reconcile an invoice payment, that's going to again update the invoicing module. So these modules work really nicely together and again lead to streamlining and efficient processing of your bank transactions. And finally, just to mention recording bank deposits. So if you have cash or check deposits where you take them to the bank, maybe you're a church and you've just counted your Sunday offering, you're about to take it to the bank, that can again get recorded in the record bank deposits module, and that will again make it super simple when you come to reconcile any bank deposits, because again, rather than keying in the data off of a paper-based form, it was captured electronically to begin with, which means it's going to be ready there for you to match. So hopefully that makes sense. This process flow inside ExpensePlus is covered in other lunch and learn sessions. So just like you booked onto this session, if you're wanting to find out more either about the expense approvals and payments process flow, or you're wanting to find out more about bank deposits and creating customer invoices, then we do offer a couple of lunch and learn sessions that cover what I've just mentioned in much more detail. So let's dive in and look at the bank reconciliation module. This is what the screen looks like inside ExpensePlus, and essentially this is split into two steps, and I'm going to cover both of these steps now. The first step is uploading your bank transactions, which for most bank accounts, this step is taken care of for you because of open banking. So when you are setting up your bank accounts, we're going to go into settings, which is this cog in the top right-hand corner of the screen. We're going to go into bank and cash accounts. When you're setting up your bank accounts, you'll have this button to the right of the bank provider, and it will allow you to connect your account to open banking. It will allow you essentially to create an automated data feed of your transactions into ExpensePlus. So if you haven't seen that and you haven't checked that out, we'd highly recommend that you do take a look. Now, if the bank provider in question doesn't provide a feed, you'll see this message here. So for Kingdom Bank, it's not possible to connect. So we would recommend, first of all, that you go ahead and look to see, if you haven't done already, how you can and which bank accounts you can connect to open banking, because this is going to take care of step number one for you. It's going to mean that ExpensePlus automatically brings in your bank transactions 3 or 4 times a day for you, which means you can just go ahead and reconcile transactions really easily. Now, if you don't have open banking for one of your bank providers, or you choose not to connect to open banking, there is a really efficient way to upload transactions into ExpensePlus. And you'll see this option here, which says upload transactions, which we're going to do now for Kingdom Bank. We click this button and we go ahead and we find the file, the bank statement file that we've downloaded from our online banking. The bank statement file needs to be in either CSV or Excel format, so it needs to be a spreadsheet, not a PDF. But we can go ahead and select this, and we can go ahead and click Upload File, and ExpensePlus will automatically bring in those transactions for us so that we can upload them in a single click. So where you don't have open banking, it is still efficient to download your transactions from your online banking and then to upload them into ExpensePlus. We'd highly recommend you don't modify the file that you upload into ExpensePlus. ExpensePlus is clever enough to know, based on your bank, what the statement looks like and which columns are which, and so it will pull in the transactions correctly. So don't try and be helpful and kind of delete out blank lines from the top, etc. You're more likely to make a mistake if you do that. ExpensePlus will automatically bring in your transactions. If it can't find your transactions in the file, or this looks wrong, you can just click no, something doesn't look right, and ExpensePlus will take you off to a screen where you can essentially specify manually which column is which and what date format you use, etc. But most of the time you don't need to do that. We're going to click yes to upload these transactions. ExpensePlus is showing us in here what transactions, what the balance is at the end of the last transaction that we're uploading. It shows us this here, and we can see inside here. So I'm just going to close a notification that is appearing. We can see inside here what the bank balance was. We can check that this matches with our bank statement, and assuming it does, we know we've uploaded the transactions correctly. If it's wrong, then now's the time to go ahead and fix that, because what you don't want to do is just click yes for the next 3 months, and then suddenly in 3 months' time think, oh, my bank statement balance doesn't match inside ExpensePlus to my actual bank statement. If you do that, you're going to have to go back through and find where you've made a mistake. So it's far better to just check this if you are manually uploading transactions using this option as you go. We're going to click yes, and that means that we can see the 3 transactions that we've just brought in for that bank account. So remember, uploading transactions is only necessary if you haven't connected to open banking. But for the vast majority of bank providers, you can connect to open banking and negate the need to do this. If you are uploading transactions, you can do it on any basis that you like. You can do this weekly, you can do it monthly, you can do it ad hoc. It's entirely up to you. What you need to not do, however, is upload transactions twice, and you also need to not miss any transactions. And that's where checking the bank statement balance that appears in that pop-up is really important, because it will help you know that you are doing this correctly. Now, if you happen to have a provider where you can't connect to open banking, they don't provide you your transactions in spreadsheet format, then probably we're talking about a savings account where you get an annual paper statement. Where that's the case, when you click upload transactions at the bottom of this pop-up that you saw me upload the file for before, you can click this upload transactions manually. This will allow you to sit here and add the 2 or 3 transactions each year for that account, upload them, and obviously you're manually keying them in. We'd highly recommend you do not use this option unless unless you really can't get hold of the statement. This option is obviously far slower to begin with. Secondly, you're likely to make a mistake at some point. You might key in a transaction for £19.49 as £19.59, and that's going to cause your bank statement balance to be out. And thirdly, the description on the bank statement, ExpensePlus is expecting this to match what the actual bank statement says. And again, if you're keying in the description, if you don't key in the description consistently, then you're going to find the quick matching feature that we're about to talk about with Inside Bank Reconciliation also won't work for you. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to leave this screen. Yes, I want to leave this screen, and I'm just going to recap. So when it comes to bank reconciliation, step 1 is uploading the transactions. For most accounts, open banking takes care of this. You can file upload, as you saw me do, and for the very few accounts that are kind of very paper-based, such as a kind of annual interest savings account, then you can manually add the transactions for those accounts. Now we're going to talk about bank reconciliation, which is the second step, or for most people is the only step that they need to action. And we're going to look at matching transactions or reconciling transactions for our current account. We're going to click match transactions to the right-hand side of the screen to do so. Now, inside this screen, we're going to talk about the three different kind of ways that you reconcile transactions. We're going to start to talk about recurring transactions. We're then going to talk about what you do with transactions that have been processed through the process flows that we talked about at the start of this session. And then we're finally going to talk about how you reconcile other transactions, the 1 or 2% of other transactions that need something extra doing with them. So let's talk about quick matching first. So quick matching is at the top of the screen. It's worth noting if you are in the first month of using ExpensePlus, quick matching will not work for you. It learns about your transactions in the first month of reconciling them, and then it will be able to quick match from month 2 onwards. So we're going to look at quick match income transactions first. So we can click here and we can see what ExpensePlus has done of all the unmatched transactions. So those 45 or 46 transactions that were waiting to be matched. What it's saying is, look, I can see the bank statement description of those transactions and you've reconciled them before. I know what these are. Last time you reconciled this, you told me it was a donation from this donor. You told me you wanted it recorded against this fund in this category, and this was the donation method. And this is brilliant because it works based on the bank statement description. So if a donor gives weekly rather than monthly, it will still reconcile. If a donor increases their standing order by £20, it will still reconcile. If a donor gives 2 different donations to your charity, maybe one for the food bank, one for your general fund, it will still reconcile. And so this works brilliantly. Now, if you are with CAF Bank or Lloyds Bank, you might be thinking, Sam, that's great, but that's not going to work for my bank because my bank annoyingly puts an extra bit of detail after every bank statement transaction description that's unique. Well, actually, it will still work for your bank because we've designed ExpensePlus to not remember that extra bit that CAF and Lloyds add to the bank statement description. So what I'm saying will work for you guys as well. Now, if you want to, you can exclude a transaction from being quick matched. Maybe we want to exclude this one. You can just untick it, and that means that it won't get quick matched when we match transactions. Why might you want to exclude? Well, you might want to exclude where the memory record is wrong. And I'll explain in a second what to do if you find that any of these are quick matching incorrectly. But for these, we're happy with them. We can go ahead and we can quick match. And for most churches and charities, quick matching income paid in income transactions reconciles, for example, 50 or 60% of their bank statement transactions in a single click. Let's look at outgoing transactions because these work in a really similar way. We're going to click quick match paid out. Here's our ExpensePlus subscription. Again, ExpensePlus knows the fund and the category. Here's our Facebook advertising. Again, it's seen this before, so it knows where to assign these different transactions. And essentially, it's creating the expenditure transactions, reconcile them to the bank statement transactions, and just taking care of all of these transactions in a single click. So I'm going to click Match Selected, and those are those transactions that have been matched. Now, if you find that you have matched something incorrectly, or you want to update the fund or category that something is assigned to, then you can click this Manage Remember Transactions button to the right of here. This allows you to look at the different transaction types, so you can find them in here. So in this case, name donations, you can search inside here, so you can search for a name. So I can just come in here and I can just search for David, for example, and it will bring up all the ones that are remembered. Now, it remembers per bank account. And so that's, again, a helpful thing. And if we don't want it to remember this one anymore, so actually we don't want it to remember, we can just click the delete button. That won't delete any already matched transactions. What this will do is stop ExpensePlus reconciling transactions with this bank statement reference to this fund and category and this donor. If you want to edit it rather than delete it, then you can click into here and we can update and say, no, actually, this should be allocated to the food bank fund, or this should be allocated to a different income category inside our general fund. Again, if you do this, it won't affect previous transactions. It's simply the memory record for what's going to happen to upcoming future transactions. So if you do realize something's been reconciled wrong, for example, the wrong donor name or the wrong fund, then you should edit the memory record, but you should also go ahead and update the transactions that are incorrect, that have been reconciled incorrectly from the past as well. And as mentioned, there's the different remember transaction records in here for you to go and find. And so, for example, you might have overshortened a reference. So, for example, in here, we've got the bank statement reference of general giving in square brackets, David Barnes. And this is what Stripe does for any income via Church Suite into Stripe. It looks like this. Now, when we were remembering this, or if we come and edit it, if we shorten this and get rid of David Barnes and just leave it like that, that means any bank statement transaction with that kind of fund in square brackets will now get reconciled to the donor David Barnes. And that's typically what can happen wrongly. People are over shortening bank statement references. We'd recommend you don't typically shorten the bank statement reference, but you might need to. For example, if a donor always appends their donation with annoyingly with a date of when they've given it, then actually you can overcome that by shortening the reference to exclude again the bit that isn't the recurring bit, so that just the recurring bit remembers. But hopefully that makes sense. This is the memory for Quick Match. I'm just going to quickly check my notes and just check that I've covered everything that I wanted to inside here. Yes, I think I have. So let's move on then to talk about what we call one-to-one matching. So we've already quick matched all of our recurring income and recurring expenditure. That's got rid of 50, 60, 70% of our bank statement transactions. Now, if we've been using the process flow inside ExpensePlus that I mentioned at the start of this session, then those transactions that have gone through the process flow are going to be showing on the right-hand table. On the left-hand table are all the unmatched or unreconciled bank transactions that have either been uploaded or have come in automatically via the feed on the left-hand side. So on the right-hand side, we've got some customer invoices that we've created. We've got some expense claims that have flowed through the approvals and payments process flow. We've got a bank deposit that's been recorded through the bank deposit screen. We've got another few outgoing transactions here, and we've got some incoming. Oh, this is another invoice that's been created. If you want to, you can drill in to the transactions on the right-hand table. Now, when we're reconciling transactions, if we click on a bank statement transaction on the left-hand table, this is an invoice payment that's come in from a customer. If the amount matches something on the right-hand table, it will automatically go and find it. And so this has said, look, this is surely this invoice here that you created for this customer. Do you want to reconcile it? And I can just click yes. Now, that was an invoice payment where it automatically went and found the invoice payment. This is another invoice payment. And again, it's going ahead and saying, look, I can see it. I can see that this is the payment for that invoice. And if we went to the invoicing screen right now, we'd see that these invoice statuses are getting updated so that they're no longer outstanding because, of course, we're reconciling against the payment. And that works really nicely for your invoices where your customers have paid you directly what you're expecting them to pay you. If your customer pays you multiple invoices in one payment, or they part pay you, when you click on a payment coming in, it won't reconcile to the right-hand table. Even if you click multiple, what you need to do for this example is either click the plus button here or click on the transaction. Both will do exactly the same thing. You need to come into here and go invoice payment. And then inside this screen, you can either select, if it was multiple invoices that the customer paid, you can go and select them, or you can click this switch to part allocation here. And in this case, I can say, look, Leeds University have paid £700 of this particular invoice. They haven't paid the full amount. Can you go ahead and allocate that, please? And so you can, whether it isn't a one-to-one match, you can go ahead and allocate or part allocate or allocate against multiple invoices, as you've just seen. The invoice on the right-hand side has changed by amount because only 450 is now outstanding. So that's updated on the right-hand side. It's also updated on the invoicing screen, but that's how you deal with invoices that are not fully paid. Next, we've got a bank deposit that's coming in from, but again, we've been recording that inside ExpensePlus. So within the bank deposit screen, someone recorded the bank deposit. In fact, if we click on it on the right-hand table, we can have a little look at it here. That's what someone recorded as part of the process flow. So when the money hits our bank, we can just select it and it automatically allows us to reconcile here. At this point, it's worth saying if your bank does the annoying thing of where you're paying in cash and checks and it deposits them into your bank account on separate days, and so actually you end up with two transactions on the left-hand table that are not necessarily dated the same. When you're recording bank deposits, we'd recommend that rather than recording one bank deposit for cash and checks, you actually create two bank deposits, one for the cash, one for the checks. It would just mean that you can one-to-one allocate transactions in here, and that will work really nicely for you. Let's carry on going down. So we've got some more transactions here. We've got a supplier payment that's gone out, so we could have a look at it if we want to on the right-hand table. This is a payment to a supplier that's gone through the expenses, approvals, and payments process flow. Again, at the point of marking it as paid on the payment screen, it shows on the right-hand table here, so that when it comes into our bank account, we can simply select it as you've seen me do, and we can reconcile it. Similar for expense claims, we can just select it and reconcile it. got another expense claim here. And again, we can go ahead and select it and reconcile it. So for the transactions that don't quick match, which is the first thing I showed you, most other transactions, if you've been using ExpensePlus in lifetime, you'll just be able to one-to-one match them between the tables, and ExpensePlus will go and find the thing that you're trying to match to. If there's ever more than one transaction for the same amount, which doesn't often happen because you've already dealt with the quick match transactions by this point, then the transactions in the tables, instead of going green, will go yellow, and that will just allow you to select the correct transaction. It's worth noting that whilst you can multi-match, you can't multi-match by selecting transactions that are over different dates or where one's paid in and one's paid out. So for example, here we have got two transactions. Here's one that's out. Here's another one that's out. Even if I did have something on the right-hand table for £5,000, £5,086.77, it wouldn't let me match them. And the reason being, well, firstly, it shouldn't happen because if we've been using the payments process flow correctly, we shouldn't have two outgoing bank transactions and only one payment on the right-hand table. That means something's gone wrong earlier in the process flow, because when you mark a payment as paid, the expectation is you make the payment at that point. So if you're making the payment, for example, on the 30th of September, then the question would be, well, why did you also make a payment on the 29th? So firstly, it shouldn't happen. Secondly, ExpensePlus blocks you from reconciling, because if we did let you reconcile this, then you'd end up with a match that spans multiple dates, which means if you try to look in some of your financial reports, for example, on the 29th of September, they wouldn't match, they would be a problem. And so ExpensePlus blocks you from multi-matching where they're over separate dates as well. Also, when you're matching, you're trying to one-to-one match like I've shown you. You're not trying to go and find three things that relate to Bob on the left-hand table and three things that relate to Bob on the right-hand table. You're simply working down from the top, just matching as you go. If you prefer to sort by amount rather than date, there is a filter here which allows you to sort by amount. And sometimes that could be a more efficient way to reconcile. It's entirely up to you based on what you would like to do. Just going to quickly check my notes. I think I've covered everything on this section. And now I'm going to go on to explain what you do for the very small number of transactions typically where manual intervention essentially is needed. They don't quick match. They don't want a one match. Something else is needed. And this, what I'm about to explain, is also what you do if you're in month one of using ExpensePlus. You will need to manually add transactions. But remember, once you've done that for month one, all of your recurring transactions will quick match after that. So here we have got a transaction that looks like a donation. It didn't quick match, which means either we're in month one or ExpensePlus has never seen this. This is a new donation. Now, how do we deal with this? Well, you can either select it and then click the plus button, or you can cheat and just click straight onto the transaction. We can go ahead and tell ExpensePlus this is a named donation. Now, if you've imported your donors, then chances are your donor might be in the list. It's worth searching by surname. I found Betty Snow here. I can just select her. If the donor's not in the list, you can just click Add Donor to add them to this. We click the select the fund, and we can select the category that we would like to code this against. Now, if we do this, this is going to create the income transaction, reconcile it to this bank transaction, and better still, it's going to remember this for all future months. So from next month onwards, Betty Snow's donation will just quick match for us. It's worth saying that if you ever want to split a transaction, there is an enter split option just here, and you will see that on lots of the pop-ups that we're about to take a look at. So we can go ahead and match that if we want to, click confirm, and that will match the transaction and remember it for us. What if this transaction isn't a named donation? Well, you've got the other income types. There are 4 income types inside ExpensePlus. Named donation, where it comes from a donor and is a donation and is named. You know who the donor is. You've got GADS donation. This is where the donation is eligible under GADS. And for that, it needs to be either cash or it needs to be contactless card. No donor within that can have given more than £30. And there are other eligibility criteria that you can check out on the HMRC website. But essentially, if this was a contactless card donation, well, actually, it wouldn't be eligible because it's £40. But let's ignore that for the second. If this is how we should code it, then you can select GADS, you can enter the details. And again, this can be remembered for you. Invoice payment, if you've bothered to create an invoice for a customer, then you need to make sure you reconcile it when the money comes in as an invoice payment. I've already shown you how to do this, so I'm not going to cover this again. And then you've got the option of other income. And again, ExpensePlus can remember this for you. And this is really helpful. So this other income might be anything else. So it might be people paying for an event, or it might be bank interest. Anything else that is not any of the other 3 income types is what you want to use. You've got a mixed income option. If we click this option, it allows us to split a transaction into multiple different ways, into multiple different income types. And so this is an option in here. So mixed income just allows you where if someone's, for example, paid for an invoice, but they've also given you a donation as part of it, then you can use that mixed income option to split that incoming amount. And then you've got bank deposit, which essentially is a backdoor way to enter a bank deposit. If someone didn't enter it as part of the process flow, you can just add it at this point and say, look, this is a bank deposit, and you can record the details. Yeah, it was these 3 donors, it was this amount of GADs, etc. So you can enter a bank deposit through the backdoor method, essentially. So they're all the different income kind of options you've got, but money coming into your bank account might not necessarily be income. It might either be you moving money between bank accounts, it might be money coming from a payment processor account into ExpensePlus, or it might be you depositing petty cash. None of these in fund accounting world are income or expenditure. They're simply you moving money between 2 different kind of, I guess, cash pots. And so if your general fund had £20,000 and you move money between bank account A and bank account B, your general fund will still have £20,000. So movement of money between different accounts is neither income nor expenditure. And so if you're not sure about that, it is worth probably checking out some of the articles on our fund accounting blog, which just explain a bit more about why and how that works. Now, money coming in also might not be income. It might not be a transfer. It might be negative expenditure. For example, Amazon might have refunded you for something, or maybe Bob Jones has repaid some expenses. And so these 2 options allow you to essentially record negative expenditure into your accounts. And then there are some other options at the bottom here, and I'm going to go for what these are. So loan received, you'll only see these options, by the way, if you work on an accruals basis. Loan received might be where you've taken out a new loan. So Barclays has given you some money, or maybe someone's loaned your church or charity money. In here, you can record who's loaned you the money. You can add a new loanee and just record that this is a loan into your charity. That will update your balance sheet and account for it correctly. If you are lucky enough to have any investment accounts, and again, you work on an accruals basis, you can record this in here and you can say, look, actually, the reason why this money came into our bank account was it was being returned from this particular investment account. And so that is an option if you have investments. And then finally, you'll see that there's an option called opening accounts receivable reversal. This is only relevant if you work on an accruals basis, and only relevant essentially if this is your first financial year and you've carried over an accounts receivable balance from the prior year that wasn't on ExpensePlus, then this basically allows you to allocate income correctly, to say, look, actually, this is a payment of an accounts receivable from my last year. So the money coming into my bank account has already been dealt with as income in my last financial year. It was on my end of year accounts. It was part of my opening balances. And now I want to tell ExpensePlus that this money coming in is not income. It relates to that accounts receivable from last year. If you don't understand what I've just said, chances are it's not relevant for your organization. If you can also check our help guide, which has got more detailed guidance about this. So they're the options for the incoming transactions, those 1% of income transactions where you need to kind of record them manually. Similarly, there's the same option for outgoing transactions. So let me talk you through this as well. So here is a card payment that if I click on doesn't match to anything on the right-hand table. And that just means the cardholder didn't record this purchase as they ideally should have done through the enter purchases screen. But no matter, we can click on this transaction. We can select business card purchase. We can, from here, we can see the cardholder number. So we know who the cardholder is. We can know who the supplier is. So we record that as well. If we know a description, we can just enter it in here. If we don't, we can leave this blank. And then we select a fund and category. Now, a top tip, if you do have business cards in your organization, so staff and volunteers are able to make purchases on your church or charity debit or credit cards, then it's worth having a category inside your general fund called Z to be recoded. So it's a temporary category. Don't call it other expenditure, otherwise you'll end up with a right load of stuff parked there that shouldn't be there. But essentially create yourself a temporary category just so when you get a business card purchase like this, you can allocate it to that category if you don't know what it was for. You can click confirm. What this does is it creates the business card transaction in the cardholder's kind of profile as if they'd entered it themselves. It sends them an email at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, and it tells them to provide a receipt and to update the transaction details, including the fund and category, to correct. And so essentially this provides a brilliant way to streamline kind of business card purchases that appear on your bank statement where the cardholder hasn't entered the details up front. There's no need for you to stop reconciling transactions when that happens. You can simply allocate the transaction inside here. Other options then, business direct debit and standing orders. So where you've got outgoing transactions, either ones that you set up, i.e. standing orders to a particular person or supplier, or where you've set up a direct debit, then the first time that these appear on your bank statement, you record them, you tell ExpensePlus what it is for and which funding category. And then, yes, ExpensePlus can remember this for all future months. So this is a common question we get. Do I need to enter my direct debits and standing orders through the purchases screen in ExpensePlus? The answer is no, because you can simply record it once inside here, tell ExpensePlus where it needs to be remembered to, and they will remember it for all future months. Other options inside here include expense payment, mileage payment, invoice payment, gift of money. Now, you might be thinking, Sam, but surely they get entered through the enter purchase screen, and you're absolutely right. We would not necessarily recommend that you wait until transactions appear on your bank statement to then record an expense payment or a mileage payment or an invoice payment. These are largely here for people that are catching up on their finances, where they're just getting started with ExpensePlus. They want to efficiently bring in 3 months worth of transactions and efficiently reconcile them directly inside this screen. These are why these options are here. And so, yes, if you've been using the process flow to process expenses and mileages and invoice payments and gifts of money, you shouldn't be using these options inside here. These are a backdoor method if you need them, where the kind of process flow hasn't been used, probably because you're catching up with your finances inside ExpensePlus. And then finally, you've got bank pay or payment processor fee. These are really like direct debits, except they don't have receipts. This is just your bank charging you for things, or Stripe or another payment processor charging you. Again, you can tell ExpensePlus what this is. You can tell it to remember, so it will create the expenditure, but it will also remember for all future months. So these are the expenditure options inside ExpensePlus for any outgoing transactions that need to be manually kind of have manual intervention. You've got all the transfer options again, but the other way around this time, money going out of your account rather than coming into your account. You've got negative income options because, of course, money going out could going out, could be you repaying income, for example. And so you've got different options inside here. And then you've got some other options inside here, including loan repayment, money being invested into an investment account, or an opening accounts payable reversal. And so those options are inside here. So reminder of this screen then. So most transactions will quick match using the recurring transactions. Most other transactions will one-to-one match between the left-hand table and the right-hand table when you enter them. And for the 1% of transactions that you need to have that need manual intervention, you can go ahead and add those from here. In a moment, I'm going to talk about payment processor accounts, just to let you know of a couple, to cover you a couple more examples. So where money comes in between different bank accounts, you can select the transaction and click the plus button, and you can use the option of transfer between accounts. We can select the account that it's come from, and then we can say, yes, it's this transaction in the other account. So the note here is where you're reconciling transactions that are moving between two bank accounts, you need to have uploaded or you need to have connected both accounts to open banking so that the transactions are on both accounts. So for example, if this money had actually come from the Lloyds savings account, it's not letting us reconcile. It's telling us no, because the Lloyds savings account doesn't have the corresponding transaction to the one that we're trying to reconcile. So if you ever see this message, it just means that you haven't uploaded your transactions to the other account yet. Obviously, if you're on open banking, that isn't an issue because that won't happen. But here we can just go ahead and say, yep, that is what this one is. And it's just money moving between accounts. And I thought I'd just show you an example of a loan as well. So here's an outgoing. So we're repaying a loan on here. So again, inside ExpensePlus, we've got that option of loan repayment inside here. We can select who we're repaying. And when you repay a loan on an accruals basis, some of this money will be capital probably, but some could be interest, either bank interest or interest you've agreed to pay to the person. The interest part of the payment, in this case, £500, is recorded as expenditure. And I just need to select which funding category. I'm just going to park it somewhere, is expenditure, whereas the other amount, which in this case is £4,500, is repaying the capital. And so if we record it like this, what it will show is an expenditure of £500, which is the interest. And if we look at our balance sheet, when we record this transaction, our loan amount, the amount that we're showing as owing back to people in terms of loans, will reduce down by £4,500. The other amount will reduce off of our loan balance. And so this is recording a loan repayment for those where that is applicable. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to stop here with looking at this screen. No, I've got one more thing to talk to you about, and that is payment processors. So payment processors are really common for churches and charities. They include providers like Stripe, PayPal, Parish Giving Scheme, CAF, Stewardship. There's loads of different ones. Go Cardless, SumUp, Square. These are essentially third parties that collect income on your behalf. Maybe because you've got a donate button on your website, or maybe because people sign up for events using their card or direct debits, or maybe they give you a donation via kind of card or direct debits. And so these payment processors collect the money and they pay out into your bank account in a lump sum. And we can see that here with this example of Stripe. Now, to efficiently reconcile these transactions inside ExpensePlus, there's a few different options. The first bit of advice, though, that I give is if you are using one of those payment processors, is change the payout frequency inside the payment processor. Because whilst it would be very lovely for Stripe to pay you out 20 times each month and for you to sit there reconciling each of those, it's far more efficient, unless you're super tight on cash flow, to change the payout frequency to be ideally monthly, if not definitely weekly. And so it removes the need to reconcile payouts from your payment processors so frequently. And so just go inside Stripe or SumUp and just change your payout frequency to monthly. That will, first of all, cause you lots of joy and happiness, as you only have to reconcile one incoming transaction to your bank account, not 20. The second thing is there's two ways to deal with this. The first way is probably what you might have been doing in the past, which is clicking on the payout from your payment processor and then splitting it against the different things it involved. And there is a mixed income option to do that if you would like to. You can just click confirm and you can go ahead and you can say, look, this Stripe payout for 400 and whatnot pounds was these different donors. We had some, no, we won't go for an invoice payment. We're going to skip that for now. We've got some other income, maybe some event income, and most payment processors charge fees as well. So actually they don't pay you the total gross of the income. They also deduct some fees, and so we'll record that in there. It's absolutely possible to do this, and as long as the amount adds up to £420.30, then you're all done. So it's all good. If you're looking at this thinking, yeah, but I don't want to do that, I'm just going to bulk it together maybe with one income line and fees, that's absolutely fine. You can do that. All you're doing is losing the ability to see that data inside ExpensePlus. So when you create a donations report, you're not actually going to see which donors given which if you just aggregate the whole lot together. But that's obviously an option to save time. Typically, you do still need to split it, because it's not the right thing to do to just call this Stripe income, because of course it's made up of gross income less the fees that Stripe have charged. So as minimum, you're going to need to create an other income line and a fees. And probably if the income relates to different funds and categories, you're going to have to split it at least partially anyway. So option one is the mixed income and the ability to split the payout from a payment processor into multiple things. And you can absolutely do that. An alternative is to actually take this payout and actually say, no, this is a payout from a payment processor. It's a payout from my Stripe account, and simply to tell ExpensePlus, this is a payout from my Stripe account. And then inside our Stripe account, we can upload our transactions. Now for Stripe, there's a couple of options for doing that. One is to connect to the equivalent of open banking, which just brings in your Stripe transactions automatically for you. You can take advantage of all those quick match options that you've seen me do, and actually you can super efficiently match Stripe income inside your payment processor account for Stripe. So that would be the option I'd recommend. Or you can manually upload a payout report from Stripe, which is still probably better than splitting your Stripe payout into multiple different options. So do check that out. These are payouts from payment processor accounts. You can manually split them, but typically it's more efficient to essentially create your payment processor account inside ExpensePlus, like we have here, to record the payout into your bank account as coming from your payment processor account, and then to upload transactions to that payment processor account, ideally using the automated feed, which is already available for Stripe and SumUp, and later this year is coming for Go Cardless and for Square as well. In terms of reconciliation of those accounts, it works exactly the same as you've seen me do for a bank account, so I'm not going to cover that again. If you're wanting to find out more about payment processors, the best way to do that is to click the blue help icon to come to our help guide and email support. And then if you just search for your payment processor, so if we go in here and just go Cardless, for example, if that's who it is, then we can click how to reconcile Go Cardless. It will talk you through the two options that I've just mentioned for this particular payment processor. It gives you detailed guidance, including where to download reports from inside that payment processor as well. So do check this out if you're wanting to find out more about payment processors, or just pop a message in the chat and I will be really happy to answer at the end. I'm just going to check through and look at anything else that I needed to cover within bank reconciliation before we moved on to talking about adjustments. The only couple of things that I wanted to mention is firstly, how to see where you've reconciled a particular a transaction to. Now, there are loads of ways to find transactions inside Expense Plus. There's a search feature up here. So if I know the transaction amount, I can just come up here and search. So that's definitely an option. If I want to find a particular transaction, I can just come here and click search. And it's probably, oh no, it's found quite a lot of different things. So that's search, that's an option. Or if you know which fund and category it was coded to, then you can come to your finance reports and you can come to your by fund report or your transaction report. And of course, you can go and find the particular category that you want to find in here, and you can then go and see where it is. You can go and update the transaction if you need to, and so you can find transactions that way. Or if you simply know that actually I've just reconciled it, it was on my September bank statement for my main account, then you can click view statement, you can select the month in question, and of course you can see your transactions here. On the right hand side, you can just drill into a transaction. So if we want to drill into this particular transaction, we can do. As mentioned, we can update it, we can split it if we would like to as well. And so typically, if a transaction has been wrongly recorded, you can get away with just clicking it and then updating it. If, however, you've completely recorded it incorrectly, so this is name donation from Natalie Snow, pretend it was actually a supplier, it was actually a customer invoice payment. So Natalie actually had an invoice and we shouldn't have recorded it as a donation, we should have recorded it as an invoice payment. Then we can click this cross button to the side. This will unmatch the transaction, send it back to the match screen, and we can have another go and match it again. And so that is the first thing to note. The next thing to note is that in terms of transactions, you can split a bank transaction itself. And the only time you typically need to do this is where money has come in and it's for multiple different things. So, for example, let's pretend that Bob Jones gave you a donation, but he was also giving you a loan as well. So these are quite niche examples, but pretend that happened, or maybe pretend that he paid you £50, but actually the reason he paid you £50 is because it was a donation for £100, but you owed him £50 worth of expenses. So some of these more niche examples where the bank transaction isn't just straightforward to reconcile, it is possible to click the edit button to the right of a bank transaction and to split that transaction into multiple parts. You can't change the overall amount because, of course, this happened on your bank statement whether you liked it or not, but you can split a transaction where that is the case, where you've just got this really niche example where you need to be able to split this into the fact that he's actually given you or this person's giving you 100 in, you owe them 50, and actually they just paid you the net. Then this is the way to do it, by splitting the bank transaction.